बहुत
Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. Right at the top of this edition, and we're going to keep our focus on Pahalgam and the aftermath and multiple angles to this entire coverage through this Wednesday edition. Mr. Rahul Gandhi is also scheduled to address a press conference after the government has announced that they will incorporate, or the caste enumeration will be done with the forthcoming census. When that will happen, we don't know, but when that press conference happens, we'll dip into it for a bit. But we'll keep the focus on the post-Pahalgam moves of Bharat and also the impact over across in Pakistan. Now, some exclusive inputs on the masterminds of the Pahalgam attack. That's what we'll start with. So here are the details. Hashim Musa, the mastermind of the Pahalgam attack, has been involved in 6 major terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir in the last few years. So he's been operating in the region for a while. Musa is one of the 3 main conspirators. So the Jammu and Kashmir police has put out a reward of 20 lakhs on him. Any information, anybody that provides is crucial, is critical. This is how he looks like in the sketches. His pictures have also been circulated. Musa was involved in the October 2024 Ganderbal Gagangir attack in Kashmir, and in which 6 non-locals and a doctor were killed. He was also involved in the Bhuta Pathri attack in Baramulla, in which 2 army jawans and 2 army porters were killed. And according to NIA sources, there are 3 main conspirators of the entire Pahalgam carnage, the massacre. Among the 3 conspirators, 1 is in Jammu and Kashmir and 2 conspirators are currently in Pakistan. The first conspirator is the chief of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Hafiz Saeed. The second is the deputy chief of the Lashkar, Saifullah. And the third is Hashim Musa. Hashim Musa is suspected to be in Jammu and Kashmir, for whom a massive search operation is currently underway by the security forces. NIA sources reveal Musa has been sent to Kashmir on a special mission by the Pak army commanders to attack non-Kashmiri people and security forces. So the action so far taken by the Jammu and Kashmir police: 1, 10 terrorist-linked houses have been demolished by the Jammu and Kashmir authorities. So what are the authorities doing? What's the counter-action that's happening along with the hot pursuit of these perpetrators? The second part, a 20 lakh cash reward for information on terrorists, has been already announced. Over 1,500 OGWs, overground workers, have been detained across Kashmir. 175 OGWs have been detained in Anantnag alone. Search operations are currently underway in over 10 districts of Jammu and Kashmir. Bharat has also banned 16 Pakistani YouTube channels for false narratives, and Jammu and Kashmir cops have raided the homes of terrorists in Doda and also Kishtwar. So some hard action is also being taken. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, political commentator and scientist with us. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra should be joining us any moment now, the former diplomat and also Consul General to Karachi. Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon is with us, former GSC Chinar Corps of the Indian Army, with us, and Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow IPCS, is with me here in the studio. Good to have you here in person. But General Dhillon, first up, let me ask you, sir, if this person has been operating in Jammu and Kashmir for a while, why has it that we've not been able to get him?
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to your fellow panelists, and good evening to your viewers. Person like Musa, who has been assigned a very specific target, is always kept under the wraps and is not exposed for minor things. ISI has a way of working wherein person whom they depend so much upon is never exposed to. He will never come to a village to pick up foodstuff. He would never be involved in a small little things. He would always be kept in a hideout, and he would never make transmissions. So it is very difficult to get a person like him who has a system around him, who cater for all his logistics. So he personally would never come in the forefront, and that is why he is not seen. He will never make communication. He is not heard. So he is a man on a mission, but notwithstanding that, the security forces, now that they got a whiff of him, sooner or later they are going to get him.
But is it so easy to float around in Jammu and Kashmir for months on end, perpetrate at least 6 attacks and still escape the security grid or the dragnet?
No, it's not so easy. And today, because the number of terrorists have come down to generally about what the media reports say, about 80, and out of them, 80% are from Pakistan. Hence, the local component within the terrorist groups has also reduced considerably. Pulwama hasn't had a terrorist boy getting recruited as a terrorist for last 2 years, what I was told.
Ji.
Now, this is the type of situation there. So, the terrorists who are high-value target for the security forces, like I said earlier, they would never come down to a village, they would never come down in open, and they would never expose themselves unless they are on a recce for a target, for a mission or for an action. And this is one of those things. Otherwise, in 90s and 2000s, we had terrorists who were operating for 10 years. But
Right.
those days, intelligence was very sketchy. Information was not there. Mobiles were not there. So passing of intelligence by the locals was very difficult. Technical intelligence was more or less zero. But today, with the technical intelligence and human intelligence network which the security forces has in Kashmir,
Ji.
this is an exception. Otherwise, the shelf life of a terrorist is not that much as has been given in your report.
Just one more question. Just one more question before we go across, General Saab. I want to understand because you were GOC there when abrogation happened. You've seen some of the thickest and most troubled times. A question that comes to everybody's mind, including me as a Bharatiya, as a citizen, is why is it taking so much time to get them? If we are in hot pursuit, why is it taking so much time? ये इन 4-6 को to identify, track and to punish them, why is it taking so much time? So please explain to our viewers, because yes, patience is being tested. We want the bullet on their forehead and we want them accounted for.
Anand, just to give an idea about the topography and the geography in the area where Pahalgam incident happened. From Pahalgam, if you look towards east, and there is a ridgeline going and there is a massive jungle which leads towards the Shri Amarnath Ji cave. And if you look towards southeast, again a massive jungle rising up to Pir Panjal range and over to Santhal Pass. And if you look towards northeast, and that is the area which goes towards the Mahadev Ridge, and towards the northwest, again dense jungle going towards the Tral Baul, which is in itself is very infamous for terrorist hideouts. So area all around Pahalgam is jungle, and Pahalgam is the last built up area or inhabited area. Beyond that is only when the yatra starts. There are few hamlets here and there, and that is the reason the topography is such thick pine dense forest, and the sheer area around it is hundreds of square kilometers. So for melting of 4 people in that jungle and not making communication, and that's how, as it is, the communication signals are very poor in those areas. In fact, in jungle, I would feel they would be zero. So it is very difficult. The area is too large. The security forces required are too many. Hence the delay. But notwithstanding, all these jungles can be mapped by surveillance means, by heli means, and that's what the security forces must be doing. And I'm very sure it's a matter of time.
We are also very sure, the belief is there, sir, that it's a matter of time. It's just that waiting period, that patience where it is getting onto the ebb. Words from you are reassuring as a person who can tell us not just the lay of the land, that it will take some time. And that's where, when this patience is being tested, that we got to hold on. Ambassador Rajiv
And I want to make one more point.
Ji, sir.
These jungles, because they are not inhabited, hardly any civilians goes into it. These jungles have primary growth, secondary growth and tertiary growth. And when I say tertiary growth, it means the bushes, the undergrowth is anything up to 5 to 6 to 7 feet. And there are patches in these jungles where sun rays have never hit the ground in history. The top cover is so thick. And if you miss a chap by 2 meters, because of the growth of the undergrowth, and the line of sight visibility not being there, you miss a chap. So with the limited line of sight, the technical equipment not working to full efficiencies because of the jungles and the undergrowth, it will take time, but I'm very sure it will happen.
That's what we've heard reports, some confirmed, some unconfirmed, and it's been reported across the media that at least 5 or 6 times these terrorists have been sighted, but
Yes.
the hot pursuit, they've just escaped by a whisper. But let's hope that the next time it's our forces who will be luckier. Gents, I'm just getting a move on. You're with us through the hour. We're only focusing on this, so we'll collect all your thoughts one by one. Just the other aspect, the other angle. What is Bharat doing? That's another question that is coming to our mind. Are we really doing anything? Is it punitive enough? Are we punishing them? And is it a whole of government approach? So one of the first things is the Indus Water Treaty abeyance. We put the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. Now here's what has happened. Let's try and have a look at these pictures. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, please weigh in whenever you'd like to bring in this one caveat here or there. Let's call up these images. So these are from the Marala headworks. So the Marala headworks is a dam, or is there a barrage there where water is stopped. So April 21st, this is how the water dispensation there was. It was nice and wet and a lot of water. Then April 26th, 3 days after this entire Indus Water Treaty being put in abeyance, there is a drying up of the waters here. So you see the waters drying up. And April 29th, so about 6-7 days, nearly a week later, you can see large areas of dry area and also green patches here too. Now we just have to tell you that this is right along the border area, that region, and the Marala headworks. So Abhijit Iyer Mitra, impact of the Indus Water Treaty abeyance, quasi, yes, no?
I'll hold off on that because this is just under the Marala headworks. So we don't know if it's the Pakistanis stopping the water or not. I've asked for satellite imagery upstream because we need to analyze it from our side. And that's what I'm looking at right now. But if we have done this, assume that almost about 15% of the crops from here have been destroyed. And you know, this was planting season for wheat, it was planting season for mustard, it was planting season for methi dana, fenugreek. Mustard, your primary source of fat in that region. You know, Punjabis only cook in mustard oil. Wheat, they're not a rice culture like some of us, they're a wheat culture. You're destroying a lot. Imagine you've achieved this much in about 7 days. Imagine what more you can achieve. You know what's going to be more devastating if we're the ones who have stopped this is when we open the dam and let a flood pass through. Because then what ends up happening is you destroy even more because the sapling has to be planted very close to the surface. It washes the entire sapling away. So this, you know, this notion that we have to hold back 100% of the water to cause 100% damage to the crops, that's not true. 1% variability of water can destroy 90-95% of the crops.
Even if it is 1 MAF or 1 million acre feet of water up and down, and or 1 million acre feet of water extra.
Exactly.
Depending upon the timing, we can hurt them. So this is hurting them. If the Pakistanis themselves are stopping the water, then they are hurting their own people.
Exactly.
General Saab has put his hand up. Then I'll bring you Ambassador Rajiv Dogra and Anand Ranganathan. Abhijit Iyer Mitra and then General Saab.
What these images don't show, which I've been seeing on satellite, is that some of the floods we've created with the Jhelum, they have actually sunk their anti-tank bunkers and things like that, inundated them.
Inundated. Now, that is, we have not been able to confirm that, and some of those satellite images we have not been able to access. When we access it, we would share it here. This is what we've been able to access. So this water, and that too because we are upriver, we are the only nation in this region. The Chinese are sitting on thousands of million acre feet of water. They don't have with any of the 18 nations downriver, they don't have any water treaty. We are the only nation who have water treaties with downriver nations, be it Pakistan or be it Bangladesh. Yes, General Saab.
Anand, since you talked about Marala headworks, for your viewers, better understanding of what is the relevance and importance of Marala headworks, there are 6 rivers, as we all know. Starting from top, it is Indus, Jhelum, Chenab. These are top 3 rivers or northern rivers, and there is Ravi, Beas, and Satluj. As per the Indus Water Treaty, Ravi, Beas, and Satluj water has to be retained by India, and from Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, the water would go into Pakistan. Now, what this means is, in this part of the world, the grain of the country, that means the gradient of the land, is from northeast to southwest. Now, when the gradient is from northeast to southwest, that means the water in Ladakh When it starts flowing with gravity, it will go down to the Arabian Sea, somewhere towards the western part of the underbelly of Pakistan.
Ji.
That means it will flow in the northeastern to southwestern direction.
Ji.
Now, why Marala headwork is relevant is because Marala headwork is made on Chenab River, where Pakistan is supposed to be getting water as per Indus Water Treaty. Now, there is a Ravi River which passes through Lahore and most of Punjab. Now, but in Ravi River, we are not supposed to be releasing water. There are certain seepages and leakages, that's a separate issue. Now, to sustain Punjab of Pakistan, what Pakistan has done is they made a Marala headworks and they have taken out a canal from Marala and come and joined it with Ravi. That means they pulled down the Marala water or the Chenab water and put it in Ravi. From Marala Ravi link canal it's called. And secondly, at a place called Bambanwala, little further west of Marala, they have taken out another canal from Bambanwala to Ravi siphon to Bediya. It's called Bambanwala Ravi Bediya link canal, and this canal flows south of Lahore. Ravi flows north of Lahore, and Bambanwala Ravi Bediya link canal flows south of Lahore. That is how they are able to cultivate the agricultural land in their Punjab province. Now, if we have already stopped the water in Ravi, Satluj and Beas, and now Chenab, Jhelum and Indus water we are controlling, and Marala dries out, it's not only that Sindh province and the Balochistan will dry out, Punjabi Pakistan will dry out, Pakistani Punjab will dry out. Both these canals which are bringing the water of Chenab into Ravi would become redundant, and Ravi water which is flowing north and south of Lahore, basically in the mainland of Punjab, would get a hit. So that is the relevance of Marala drying out for the benefit of your viewers.
Right. So this is critical. So this is a very, very punitive impact on large-scale masses and lands of and you're hitting where it will hurt because it is the stomach bowl, and that's where it is. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. So this is quite serious. Do you think Abhijit Iyer Mitra believes the Pakistanis may themselves have shut the dam down? Will they do that at a time when there is harvest? It's critical, and you can see the dried up areas. Dr. Ranganathan, coming to you after Ambassador Dogra. Ji.
Well, I don't want to comment on what Pakistanis are doing or not doing. But certainly I recall that in 1965, we had used water as a weapon when it was very critical. I think I may be mistaken, but if I recall correctly, it was General Harbakht Singh who decided to breach a canal and flood the Pakistani side of the border because their tanks were advancing in a very menacing way, and we were in, I wouldn't say hopeless situation, but we were not in a very good situation. So when this water flooded the tank's path, then we could, use our air force and so on and virtually slaughter them. So that lesson, if it is being followed today, congratulations, because water can be a huge weapon. It can also be a huge weapon not just for the crop, but also for whatever designs strategically Pakistan has in terms of advancing its forces or advancing its equipment. So selective release or stoppage of water can prove to be extremely useful in warfare.
So, yes, General Saab, you put his hand up again, and Dr. Ranganathan, I'm coming to you with some very interesting news that's just coming through. Yes.
Sorry for frequent interruptions, but I must amplify the relevance and the military significance of the points which are being made, and very good points are being made on the show today, Anand. What Ambassador Dogra has said, that breaching the canals and inundating the areas around, it is a defensive measure to stop the enemy's armored corps or enemy's tank from progressing towards your own land. There are different inundation schemes all along the Ravi River, where Ravi is flowing along the more or less along the international boundary. Few enclaves onto enemy side and few their enclaves onto own side in the area of from Gurdaspur and right up to Amritsar, or Ajnala for that matter. So these schemes are very much part of the defensive plan. However, this scheme will only come into play when there is water in the Ravi River, and then we can breach at the place of our own choosing to stop their armored corps from using that particular piece of land opposite our border. And what Marala headworks will do is it will dry out. It will dry out the areas from agriculture point of view if the regular flow of water is not there.
So yeah, fair point made. Yeah, no, this is important for our viewers to understand that this Indus Water Treaty and this holding back the water or letting extra water across these rivers that are flowing into Pakistan gives us a huge strategic advantage, and it's a huge headache because the people there, the farmers there will be up at arms, and that's a huge civilian disturbance and issue for the government there. Yes,
absolutely.
Please.
Now, see, like General said, there are several layers and lines of these concentric. They think of it as defenses as well as irrigation works, right? Now, they look at it from a single point of view that we're flooding them and they're holding back water so they can flood them if an armored thrust happens. What they don't seem to get is if you flood one of these, it also prevents you from withdrawing.
Yeah.
So what is a problem for us is also a problem for them, right? So it's one of those things where they're caught between a rock and a hard place.
So nice vyuha, if I may say, not a chakra vyuha but a water vyuha that is being crafted very smart. Like you said, Jhelum, they released waters, it destroyed some bunkers. It's unconfirmed. That's what Abhijit Iyer Mitra is claiming. Dr. Ranganathan, coming to you with something very interesting. Thank you for your patience. Look what the Pakistanis have been caught doing again, and they've been found out, and it's so embarrassing. The Pakistani Air Force has put out a fresh post, and the farcical games continue. The account has been seen using videos from SpaceX. So this is the latest that we've got, that they have been caught out and they've been called out saying the account is using videos from SpaceX, video games such as Call of Duty, footages from Turkish drones, S-300, and claiming it to be their own. This is what they've been flagged off. This is the DGPR Air Force handle. Dr. Ranganathan.
Well, this is an entirely new definition of what we call cyber warfare. They are literally using cyber. But the fact of the matter is that it's not about what Pakistan does and does not do. We know what its capability is, and it knows rather worryingly for itself what our capability is. First of all, I think it's a real joy to have this wonderful panel out here. Good evening to you and to them, and wonderful to see Abhijit on the panel.
I'm just sorry, Dr. Ranganathan, but these are the lot that whose MLAs and parliamentarians there in their Senate are saying कि बाबरी की पहली ईंट रखने वाले हैं और अजान पढ़ने वाले हैं with this kind of stuff.
No, maybe the Prime Minister of Pakistan is called Grok, and they're using.
Please continue.
As I was saying, Modi is taking care of our external snakes, and Abhijit, the Exocet missile, is taking care of our internal snakes, as I'm seeing for the past 3-4 days. Although I object to your using the pun when you address Abhijit as Abhijit, weigh in on this. Please don't ask Abhijit to weigh in on anything, But yes, that was a PJ. Three things out here. We talked about in the last 20 minutes about the external visible threat. One of the threats that General Saab talked about, and I couldn't just help but pick it up, is that how on earth was Musa so comfortable in Indian territory for possibly days on end, possibly months, unless we address this. And I saw you talking about this illegal immigration and the threat there.
We're going to come to that next, yeah.
Right. So I think the thrust has to be as much internal, Anand, in conjunction with combating the external threat, because Musa could not have done what he has done without internal help. As I keep saying, the snakes might be Pakistanis, but the ladders are Indians. As is exemplified by what I said a week ago when the Pahalgam attack happened. We have 4 states that share borders with Pakistan, but such massacres happen only in Kashmir, not in Gujarat, not in Rajasthan, not in Punjab. The fact of the matter is that we are looking at the hyena outside our home but ignoring the elephant in the room.
You make a strong point there. Yes, Abhijit Iyer Mitra and General Dhillon, I'll come to you.
So, this isn't the first time they've used this kind of weird imagery, right? If you noticed at the DG ISPR press conference yesterday, they said Indian drone. I'm looking at it, it's a Chinese DJI drone. How did it become an Indian drone? They want to expose an Indian spy, they cover up his photo. Why would you cover up the photo of the Indian spy? Then did you listen to the audio recordings
Yeah.
yesterday? Listen,
The waiting media itself was laughing.
They were laughing.
And they thanked the foreign media and they gave the entire discourse in Urdu. So there was no foreign media.
Exactly. And the thing was, this is not how intel intercepts happen. This happens in a Bollywood movie. Anand, tomorrow, you will strike that camera and I will give you a bomb and I will pay you money through phone pay. Okay. This is not how intel is done even by operatives. It is all coded and things like that. These are the kind of things, to quote Tiny Sir here, Tiny Sir doesn't give abuses. He threatens to tweet in Punjabi. So I think Tiny Sir is now thinking of threatening to tweet in Punjabi.
All right. So, but this is a nation's air force is resorting to SpaceX and this one, Ambassador Dogra. What level is this? But let's come back to a little more serious issue, because we can't take this kind of this one seriously. The world will not take the Pakistani army seriously now. Last time around, I remember during Balakot, what happened is the Pakistani Air Force said, Pakistan, go to sleep, the Air Force will guard you, we are awake. And just a few hours after that, Balakot happened. So I still remember. So this is their status, this is their stature. But the other aspect, as the cleanup begins, there are some shocking details that have emerged. Dr. Ranganathan touched upon it, and we'll go back to our panel on this. Bharat is infested with Pakistani illegals. Why we are saying Pakistani illegals? These are people who've been staying here for many years, some even for decades. They've had grandchildren, but they've not given up their Pakistani identity. They are living off Bharat, feeding off Bharat, taking our dole, some of them even voting here, but they still have not given up their Pakistani identity, their passports. Now they're embedded, are they embedded everywhere is a question. While many of them are returning, some are urging the government to reconsider the decision, saying, Hamara kya hoga, we don't want to go, we've been staying here for decades without any problem, so why should we go now? Pakistani national Osama has lived in Bharat for a shocking 41 years. One such deportee, Mufzala, has said that she has lived in Bharat for 17 years. Mufzala even casts vote in Bharat and has a ration card. Another is from Odisha, Sarda Kukreja, who's lived in Bolangir for 40 years. Her husband, children, grandchildren holding both Pakistani passport and Indian voter ID. She insists she has no ties with Pakistan and wants to stay with her relatives or with her family. But why is it that they still have Pakistani passport? How is it that they are staying all this while? How have they got voter IDs and ration cards? These are huge security questions, and this is only Pakistanis we are talking about. If the government turns its lens towards Bangladeshis and other nationals, wonder how many more are going to turn up. Listen to what they have to say.
सरकार को तो ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए ना।
अभी पाकिस्तान के साथ आपका कोई लिंक नहीं है?
नहीं, कभी बात भी नहीं हुई, कभी गई भी नहीं। बलांगीर में मेरी है, बस मैं ही हूँ।
आपके बच्चे?
हाँ, बच्चे, एक लड़की की शादी हो गई है, लड़के की भी शादी हो गई है, पूरी फैमिली। वो इंडियन है, मैं ही खाली पाकिस्तानी हूँ बस। तो अभी मैं चाहती हूँ, पूरी फैमिली को नहीं छोड़ सकती, मैं अपने बच्चों के साथ रहना चाहती हूँ। मैं आप लोगों को, सरकार को, मोदी सरकार को भी बेनती कर रही हूँ, मेरे को बच्चों से अलग मत करो।
15 साल हो गए यहाँ पर, गवर्नमेंट ने बोला था तो आप आ जाओ वापस, आपको बैठना यहाँ, आपको कोई मसला नहीं होगा, आप आराम सुकून से बैठेंगे। हम लोगों ने बनाया घर, हम लोगों के बच्चे छोटे छोटे थे, पाले बच्चे, तो घर बनाया। हस्बैंड मजदूरी कर रहा था, मैं पीछे से घर बनाती थी, छोटे छोटे बच्चे थे। गवर्नमेंट ने बोला आ जाओ वापस, आपको कुछ मसला नहीं होगा, आप बैठेंगे आराम से, जो यहाँ के लोग दिन निकालेंगे इस तरह आप भी लोग निकालेंगे। तो हम लोग आज बोल रहे कि यहाँ की गवर्नमेंट कि आप वापस जाओ, ये हम लोगों के लिए अच्छा है। मेरे 15 साल जो गुजरे वो अच्छे गुजरे। मेरा शोर मजदूरी कर रहा था, मगर मुझे सुकून था यहाँ पर, मैं नहीं जाती वापस।
Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, these people, if they have made Bharat their home, why haven't they given up their Pakistani identity? One, but how are they so embedded? How have they got documents, etc.? This is a concern.
Well, surely it is a concern. I don't want to comment on individual cases. That will not be fair because we don't know enough. But I can tell you from my experience that in Karachi, when we used to take pride in issuing 30,000 visas in a month, 100,000 visas in a month. We went up to 100,000 visas in a month. We always used to wonder how many of them actually stayed on. Then there were reports that every time there was an Indo-Pak cricket match in India, naturally at that time Islamabad High Commission used to be quite liberal in issuing visas. And these are newspaper reports I am quoting, that when intelligence agencies tallied the number of visas issued and number of people who went back, there was always a gap. So it is a problem. Where have they stayed? Are they sleeper cells which will be activated in due course of time? No one knows. The problem is huge if you consider also the Bangladeshi 5 million who are staying on, most of them illegally. So I think it is time we woke up. Otherwise, we will be overwhelmed by the threat from within.
Some believe it's not 5 but 50 million that Bharat is actually carrying over these illegals, and it's a huge issue. But my other question is, if you want to make Bharat your home, why not give up your Pakistani identity? If you've got a voter ID card and if you've got a ration card in Bharat, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, then they should have a Bharatiya passport. If they don't, how have they got these documents? And how are they voting in our elections if they are not even citizens of our country?
Also the question, what were we doing when we were doing the CA and NRC enumeration? How did these people escape the net? They've clearly overstayed their visas and things like that. What did we do to ever? These people are self-reporting surprisingly, right?
Yeah.
So these are very big questions we need to ask. Now that said, I am not at all moved by this human tragedy story out here. This is what Pakistan's fifth columns here in India do, show the so-called human face. Now I have a very simple, I empathize with them, great. But if you want to come back, go back, change your country for which you have the passport, see to it's no longer inimical to us, then we'll have an open border system. Nepal, you know, a Nepalese can almost become a joint secretary in the government of India without having to give up his Nepalese citizenship. No two countries are closer than Nepal. We have that scheme with Nepal. If Pakistan wasn't a hostile, inimical nation, that could have also been the condition of our relationship. Why is the burden of responsibility on the Indian government to not enforce its laws so that these guys can have good marital relations? It is not on us. It is on them to go back and reform their country of their nationality and make better ties with us.
When you are issuing LTVs, I'm not aware of the rules as much as some of the other panelists are. Does an LTV entitle you to a voter ID? Does an LTV entitle you to a ration card? The other thing is, if you have had children and you're going to live here only, why haven't you given up your old passport, and why haven't you sought passport here based on
and it's very easy. You need two forms of proof of address. So voter and ration card.
No, the marriage certificate marriage certificate here, Anand Ranganathan. Is this not a huge internal security issue that we've stumbled upon perhaps?
Not just that point, Anand, please allow me to elaborate because this is a very important issue. Illegal immigration is not just a ticking time bomb. It is now a hissing time bomb that can explode any time. It has three devastating consequences, Anand. Please allow me to go one by one on each of them. Number one, security of India. This is the most obvious one. The loyalty of these immigrants, of course, lies with the nations from where they have come in. And if these are nations that harbor terror like Pakistan and now increasingly like Bangladesh, heaven help us. Number two, it is a massive drain on our meager resources that are meant for Indian citizens. 150 million Indian children are out of school. 34% of Indian infants are chronically malnourished, and we are spending these resources on illegal immigrants. Number three, this is the most dangerous, changing India itself. Let me explain. In 2005, it was the UPA that proposed urgency in dealing with illegal immigration. The then Home Minister said he feared Assam could one day have a Bangladeshi Chief Minister. Shashi Tharoor said 20 million illegal Bangladeshis are present in India. He alluded them to being termites. In 2005, Mamata Banerjee called it the scourge of illegal Bangladeshi migration. But the moment they are out of power, they indulge in anti-India bombast. Is it not a fact that tens of millions of illegal immigrants will result in demographic shift? Why are people finding this talk of demographic shift uncomfortable? Or have we reached a stage where we cannot even state facts? Is it not a fact that a particular religious denomination is increasing compared to others? Look, if you were to take as starting point the premise that all religions are exactly the same, then there is no issue. Because under that premise, if one religious population can be the majority, why can't be the other? But the fact is, all religions are not the same. Some religions exhibit predatory, supremacist, exclusivist views and practices. The truth is, if such a religious denomination becomes majority population, it begins dictating its social practices upon others. There are some schools in Jharkhand, Anand, that now have Friday as a holiday instead of Sunday. We have seen what happened in Kashmir Valley. The sitting chief minister even called for stoning as a punishment there. We have seen the state of homosexuals and atheists and women under the majority of such religious denomination. Atheists are condemned to death in 13 Islamic countries. Homosexuals are caned, women discriminated. This is an issue for India. Look, just 30 seconds. Changing demography shifts a government's decision towards appeasement. At what demographic shift is achieved in Muslim majority area? Just look. Hamas terrorists are streamed online to deliver speeches in Kerala. Terrorists like Nasrallah are celebrated. Tens of thousands who can't even point out Lebanon on a map are mourning the death of terrorists in Kashmir. Why? So let us stop being ostriches, because the sand is no ordinary sand. It is quicksand.
But how long is this action going to be? Because to weed out 40, 50 million, 2, 3 million people also out of our country who are illegals is not going to be easy. It's a big task. Meanwhile, that's a larger conversation, but right now the government has to do something about it. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra has got a smile on his face, but the reality is we are faced with a huge task, because even if it is 5, 10,000 of these 2 million odd illegals who decide to go rogue with the state, we have a huge internal security problem. Who's helping who, where, we don't know, Ambassador Saab. Quick word and then we'll move on. Ji.
Well, I'm glad you got me in at this point, because one is taking these people out of the country. The other is learning a lesson from this demographic shift to our advantage. I have seen in a number of countries, Italy, Pakistan, and I can quote many other countries, but let me quote these two examples. After First World War, Italy got South Tyrol, which was a part of Austria earlier. So I was invited for some ceremony or the other to South Tyrol. When I went there, I saw signboards in German and Italian. So I asked the host, why in Italy you have signboards in German? He said, when we got this part, then Mussolini was in power. And he said, they are all Germans here in South Tyrol. Let me empty out prisons from Naples and Sicily and all the rowdy elements, shift them here till it becomes 51% Italian. We continue to give them the liberty of having their soccer tarta and their language, the German part, so that they can be happy. But this is now Italian majority area. What did Pakistan do after 47 in POK and northern areas, especially in POK? They settled Punjabis there. And the Mirpuri Kashmiris were all settled in UK, who still now constitute 70% of Pakistani population there. And that is why you have this famous UK tilt in favor of Pakistan. Why can't we shift our people in border areas of Jammu and Kashmir to start with?
If we make a fair point there. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, there's a counter there. Yeah.
No, not a counter, in fact, a vociferous support of what the good ambassador has said. I think we seriously need to look at Disturbed Areas Act being implemented in border states that have now minority Hindu population. And we also need to look at possibly, not only reverting or restoring the demography of Kashmir, but also thinking along the lines of what Singapore has, ethnic integration policy. The fact of the matter is, it is a known fact that even Muslims are safe when Hindus are in majority. And there, the Hindus have been driven out. The Indic people have to be restored to Kashmir. That is the only solution where they will not be supplying ladders to Pakistani snakes.
Not just restored only in Jammu and Kashmir, there are other parts of Bharat also which need that kind of restoration from there where the native population is being kicked out. I have to move on. So, yeah, quickly. Okay, Ji.
Just very quick point. You know, in Sutihol that the ambassador was talking about, there is actually a German separatist movement. They refuse to sing the Italian anthem. They will play they don't even play the Austrian anthem. They play the Deutschland über alles and things like that. So there's a full-on revanchist movement. Thankfully, you know, it doesn't get violent. The same can't be said about here.
Same can't be said about here, and here it is also that it's not native. all of this is coming from people who don't embrace our culture. They are coming here, living off us as parasites, living off this land, getting all the kagas made so that they can feed off taxpayers' money and the government's exchequer, but contribute nothing to this country while they feed off it, and eventually they want to change its very nature. So that's the larger concern. Let's move on quickly, come back to the issue at hand, Pakistan. And how do we expose this? This is the breakdown, bit by bit breakdown, and also a whole of government approach in an all-out war on terror. CNN News 18 has accessed Bharatiya government's Pak terror trail dossier. Bharat's dossier states that with instances of how Pakistan has sponsored, sheltered and exported terror for decades, and how Pakistan has used its soil as a launchpad for cross-border terrorism. Pak insiders like former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif have suggested that Pakistan played a role in the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks orchestrated by Lashkar terrorists. Former Pak President Pervez Musharraf conceded that his forces trained militant groups to fight Bharat in Jammu and Kashmir. He confessed that the government turned a blind eye because it wanted to force Bharat to enter into negotiations as well as raise the issue internationally. Just a few days ago, Khwaja Mohammad Asif, Pakistan's defense minister, admitted that the country supported terrorist groups for more than 3 decades, calling it a mistake tied to US-led foreign policy decisions. Now, there are instances of how Pakistan is exporting terrorism globally. Pakistan's ISI has been widely documented as supporting the Afghan Taliban, the Haqqani network, providing them with funding, training and safe havens. These groups have been responsible for numerous deadly attacks, including 2008 Indian embassy bombing in Kabul and 2011 attack on the US embassy in Kabul. The 2008 Indian embassy bombing was no operation by rogue ISI agents acting on their own. It was sanctioned and monitored by the senior-most officials in Pak intelligence. In April 2025, a Pak link emerged in the investigation of the Moscow terror attack. Russian authorities identified the mastermind as a Tajik national and are probing connections to Pakistan, with reports suggesting that the attackers may have logistical or ideological support tracing back to Pakistani networks. Pak-based Sunni extremist group Jaish-e-Adl has repeatedly attacked Iran security forces in Sistan and Balochistan provinces. In response, Iran carried out missile and drone strikes on the 16th of January 2024 inside Pakistan's Baloch province, targeting what it described as a Jaish-ul-Adl hideouts. Then 7 July 2005, London bombings carried out by 4 British Islamist terrorists were linked to training and indoctrination in Pakistan. 3 of the bombers, Mohammad Siddiq Khan, Shehzad Tanveer and Jermaine Lindsay, spent time in Pakistan between 2003 and 2005. 2011 US raid that killed Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan, exposed systemic failures in Pakistan's counter-terrorism efforts. Let's go back to our guests. General Dhillon, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, why can't we use this to unite the world against Pakistan? General Dhillon, can we do that?
Anand, the whole world is aware of it, and that is where I would say there are 2 things which the world is very, very scared of for the future generations. One is the Islamic terrorism, and second is the nuclear bombs going in the hands of irresponsible people. And like you very rightly brought out in the report, anywhere in the world, wherever there is a terror attack, the dots link up and come back to Pakistan. And Pakistan has the nukes, and God knows what happens tomorrow in Pakistan. Even today we don't know who is in charge of Pakistan, whether it's the Prime Minister, whether it's the Army Chief. Suddenly I came to know who is the Defense Minister of Pakistan, because Army Chief has gone silent for last 1 week. Otherwise nobody knew who the Defense Minister of Pakistan was. So this is the state. So world has to understand, if the future generation has to be safe, they got to take out this Islamic Jihad military complex, factory. And they have to take out the nukes from their control. And that is where we need to unite, and we need to do all the things under Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed to make sure world is a safer place to stay for the next generation.
Just before I bring in Ambassador Dogra, I just want to weigh in on your thoughts on this. Now, over the last 6-7 days, ever since the Simla agreement called off, Bharat said no more, we are not adhering to the ceasefire violations. Now, these are the kind of violations that we are seeing. Is there a pattern to this, and is there a design? Like, if you look at it on the map, it was ceasefire violations by Pakistan first happened on the 22nd of April, day of the Pahalgam attack. It happened in Uri. Then on 26th, it was in the Tutmari Gali. On 27th, it was in Punch. Again, 27th and 28th, it was in Kupwara. On 28th, again, Baramulla. And then April 28th and 29th, it was in the Akhnur sector, it was in Akhnur, and then it was in Sundarbani on the 29th. 29th, there was also short intermittent firing and exchange between the forces as India retaliated strongly in Pargwal. This is on the IB. Again, 29th, it was in Naushera. So now, is this a pattern? Should we read something into this, or is this a standard SOP when the ceasefire violations start happening? Is it the same continuum, General Dhillon?
Anand, the ceasefire violations on the line of control, when the ceasefire agreement was not in a place, was a done thing. It used to happen day in and day out. And it's like this, whatever happens on the line of control stays on the line of control. But now that since we are in ceasefire agreement with Pakistan, Pakistan has been violating the ceasefire agreement every time they wanted to support the infiltration on the line of control. Now, ever since Pahalgam incident, these ceasefire violations are basically to rake up the morale of the troops and to say that we are aggressive and we can take on India. And as till now, as per the media reports and my information, it is limited to the small arms fire. Small arms fire is everyday routine thing on line of control, and it can be controlled at commanding officer level. However, when the bigger weapons come into play, that is the guns and the howitzers or bigger weapons, that is where the ceasefire violations become serious and casualties happen. But most pertinent point in this is the ceasefire violation in the Pargwal sector. Having a ceasefire violation on the international boundary is something which is not a routine. So my understanding is these are just to play up their sentiments and keep their troops in a little high morale and tell them that we don't care, we are okay. Nothing more than this. But once the D-Day comes, once the option, whatever we take, and we take in whichever sector, that is when the LC will be lit up, and that is where we can actually call it a ceasefire violation.
Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, can we not push for a global isolation?
Well,
try and push that they don't get an IMF bailout, push for an FATF grey list?
Well, good point. But before I come to that, let me correct the impression Abhijit was making about South Tyrol. Demonstrations and so on are in fact tolerated because that lets out the steam of some kind of a frustration that we are under Italian occupation. And that is quite par for the course. But just imagine if Mussolini had not changed the demography, then the demonstrations would have been violent, just as we are experiencing in Kashmir and just as we might experience in the borders next to Bangladesh, border villages and towns next to Bangladesh. But as far as your point about international pressure, I think is very valid. Pakistan is in a serious economic position and it is waiting for finalization of IMF and World Bank's loans to it. If they hold on to even a fraction of the loan which is talked about, 10 billion or 20 billion, then the other lenders would also hesitate because they take their cue from these organizations who do diligence checking before they release the funds. So I think we should make the effort, whatever is possible, to try and persuade America and through it these organizations that at a time when...
Can you please correct the... I'm hearing good music.
Yes, Ambassador Dogra, please continue.
At a time when Pakistan is bent on terror activities, it should not be encouraged with financial injections. In fact, it should be shown the stick. So you're absolutely right on that.
Sir, just the update for our viewers and to everyone, the Pak-India tensions has hit their stock markets hard. They're down 3,500 points today. The Karachi KSE 100 index crashed to intraday low of 111,192.92 points, down 3,679.26 points or 3.2%. So their markets have really crashed. So,
but notice one thing, the Pakistani rupee is stable. So they are actually spending a lot of their reserves shoring up the rupee. Now understand, when we say this, that RBI has to shore up the Indian rupee, it usually means $50-60 billion out.
Correct.
People don't account for the scale of the economy.
Correct.
They've probably spent about 50 million just shoring up the rupee right now. Because if the rupee goes down, then you're going to have massive stampedes, riots and God knows what not happening out there.
True, and that means they're burning their reserves.
Yeah.
So if they're burning their reserves, they have that much less to spend. Now we are given to understand that they can stay afloat only for about 20 days. And if the IMF bailout doesn't come, then they're sunk. So that's another real big whammy that's happening on the economically trying to cripple that nation even before we strike.
So they've got about $15 billion in reserve, out of which about 8-9 are core reserves with Saudi Arabia. They can't use it.
Yeah, they can't touch those.
So only about 7-8. Right now, their expenditure is 1.35 billion a week. So they've got about, say, 5-6 weeks left. But war expenditure is insanely high. Even active deployment, you're looking at doubling of that expense. And if a war starts, you're looking at about $5 billion a week going down the drain. Which means you're probably down to about, like you said, 10-15 days.
10 days. Yeah. So we can wait those 10 days.
Yeah.
While getting them to do their sorties and military drills and night exercises every day and keeping them awake all night. So it's one whole week of sleepless nights for them. Another 1 week will only help our cause. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan. Yes.
Pakistan has been trying hard for 75 years to defeat us on land, in air, underwater, and having failed miserably, is now indulging in cyber warfare, thinking that it can beat us in that department too. Know this, that you can assemble a whole army of famished bots and make them march towards us, they will meet the same fate as your real army did time and again once we expose it for its ineptitude. 3. Moreover, we are getting bored of your silly tricks peddled by semi-literate diplomats who have got their training in Pakistani madrasas that take pride in teaching beheading gestures. 4. Keeping this in mind, what has happened since last week is but a glimpse of the extent to which Pakistan will go to avenge its military defeats in our hands. 5. Besides, it doesn't augur well for a nation on the brink of total economic collapse to be occupying itself with our internal matters, and so सुधर जाओ. 3 बार घर में घुस के मारा है, चौथी बार आ गए तो पीओ के लेके वापस आएंगे.
नहीं, चौथी बार आएंगे तो फिर घर नहीं रहेगा. That's what it is. So that's what it is. चौथी अभी तो अब आए भी नहीं, आने वाले हैं में इनकी हालत खराब है. जब पहुंचेंगे तब क्या होगा? Another thing, but this entire terror toolkit, this has been a tool or instrument of state policy. Groups like LET, Jaish-e-Mohammed trained to execute attacks in Kashmir and in Bharat, across Bharat, Jammu and Kashmir and across other parts of Bharat. It also helps keeping this entire conflict, dispute aspect internationally alive, and to try and keep doing this. And of course, that entire post-71 thing about bleeding Bharat with 1,000 cuts strategy. Now, the Pak army uses terrorism to justify its dominance over Pakistan's civilian institutions also. Now we got more inputs coming through. Intel sources have highlighted that Jaish has issued orders to all its cadre. Jaish and Lashkar have asked their cadre to be on high alert and help Pak army inside Bharat. Jaish and Lashkar have asked their cadre sitting in Bharat near Pir Panjal range to try and block the highways if there is a escalation in the conflict, or if there is an escalation. They have also asked the cadre sitting inside Bharat to damage the house of police forces the same way terrorist houses have been broken. And in their communication, they have said, don't bother about civilian killings. So this is the kind of messaging that is coming across from the other side. Can we not push for an FATF grey list, Abhijit Ayurmeta? Final round of thoughts from everyone in terms of how well and how much more calibrated we can be. How can we perhaps bring this enemy not just on their dream, but on ground?
In the FATF, you have to get a lot of countries on board, and countries like, say, for example, Turkey or Qatar will never come on board, right? It becomes very difficult because remember, our sentiment with regards to Ukraine, he's hit you, why is that our problem, is their general attitude to us. They've hit us, why is it their problem, kind of thing. So it's not something they're going to agree to very quickly. As long as it's Pakistan's cost as opposed to the cost of a president, they're not going to agree to it very quickly. But it doesn't really matter because if you burn through their reserves, फंड आए ना आए क्या लेना देना, जलाना ही तो है ना.
That's there. But I think this whole of government approach, somewhere punitive action has started, viewers. It's not necessarily it's got to be kinetic. You don't need to go there and bomb them. There are other ways of trying to bring the enemy to ground and render them so weak that they can't respond when we deliver the final telling blow. And that's also around the corner. Have to wind up, I have to cut this short because Rahul Gandhi has spoken on the caste enumeration aspect of the forthcoming census. So we'll wind up with what he had to say as he addressed a press conference a short while ago.
और हमने ये भी कहा था कि 50% की जो कैप है, जो आर्टिफिशियल दीवार लगा रखी है, उसको भी हम तोड़ के हटाएंगे. पता नहीं क्या हुआ, सडनली 11 साल बाद नरेंद्र मोदी जी कहते थे कि सिर्फ 4 जाते हैं. सडनली का सेंसस का अनाउंसमेंट किया. हम इसको सपोर्ट करते हैं, पूरी तरह सपोर्ट करते हैं, मगर हम टाइमलाइन चाहते हैं. हम जानना चाहते हैं ये कब तक होगा, और ये एक पहला कदम है. तेलंगाना एक मॉडल बना है कास्ट सेंसस के लिए, और वो ब्लूप्रिंट बन सकती है.
Brought to you by
So the Marala Headworks is a dam, or is there a barrage there where water is stopped? So April 21st, this is how the water dispensation there was. It was nice and wet and a lot of water. Then April 26th, 3 days after this entire Indus Water Treaty being put in abeyance, there is a drying up of the waters here. So you see the waters drying up. And April 29th, so about 6-7 days, nearly a week later, you can see large areas of dry area and also green patches here too. Now we just have to tell you that this is right along the border area, that region, and the Marala Headworks. So Abhijit Iyer Mitra, impact of the Indus Water Treaty abeyance, quasi, yes, no?
I'll hold off on that because this is just under the Marala Headworks. So we don't know if it's the Pakistanis stopping the water or not. I've asked for satellite imagery upstream because we need to analyze it from our side. And that's what I'm looking at right now. But if we have done this, assume that almost about 15% of the crops from here have been destroyed. And you know, this was planting season for wheat, it was planting season for mustard, it was planting season for methi dana, fenugreek. Mustard, your primary source of fat in that region. You know, Punjabis only cook in mustard oil. Wheat, they're not a rice culture like some of us, they're a wheat culture. You're destroying a lot. Imagine you've achieved this much in about 7 days. Imagine what more you can achieve. You know, what's going to be more devastating if we're the ones who have stopped this is when we open the dam and let a flood pass through. Because then what ends up happening is you destroy even more, because the sapling has to be planted very close to the surface. It washes the entire sapling away. So this, you know, this notion that we have to hold back 100% of the water to cause 100% damage to the crops, that's not true. 1% variability of water can destroy 90-95% of the crops.
Even if it is 1 MAF or 1 million acre feet of water up and down, and or 1 million acre feet of water extra.
Exactly.
Depending upon the timing, we can hurt them. So this is hurting them. If the Pakistanis themselves are stopping the water, then they are hurting their own people.
Exactly.
General Saab has put his hand up. Then I'll bring you Ambassador Rajiv Dogra and Anand Abhijit Iyer Mitra, and then General Saab.
What these images don't show, which I've been seeing on satellite, is that some of the floods we've created with the Jhelum, they have actually sunk their anti-tank bunkers and things like that, inundated them.
Inundated. Now that is, we have not been able to confirm that, and some of those satellite images we have not been able to access. When we access it, we would share it here. This is what we've been able to access. So this water, and that too because we are upriver, we are the only nation in this region. The Chinese are sitting on thousands of million acre feet of water. They don't have with any of the 18 nations downriver. They don't have any water treaty. We are the only nation who have water treaties with downriver nations, be it Pakistan or be it Bangladesh. Yes, General Saab.
Anand, since you talked about Marala headworks, for your viewers' better understanding of what is the relevance and importance of Marala headworks, there are 6 rivers, as we all know. Starting from top, it is Indus, Jhelum, Chenab. These are top 3 rivers or northern rivers, and there is Ravi, Beas, and Satluj. As per the Indus Water Treaty, Ravi, Beas, and Satluj water has to be retained by India, and from Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, the water would go into Pakistan. Now, what this means is, in this part of the world, the grain of the country, that means the gradient of the land, is from northeast to southwest. Now, when the gradient is from northeast to southwest, that means the water in Ladakh, when it starts flowing with gravity, it will go down to the Arabian Sea, somewhere towards the western part of the underbelly of Pakistan. That means it will flow in the northeastern to southwestern direction. Now, why Marala headwork is relevant is because Marala headwork is made on Chenab River, where Pakistan is supposed to be getting water as per Indus Water Treaty. Now, there is a Ravi River which passes through Lahore and most of Punjab. Now, but in Ravi River, we are not supposed to be releasing water. There are certain seepages and leakages, that's a separate issue. Now, to sustain Punjab of Pakistan, what Pakistan has done is they made a Marala headworks and they have taken out a canal from Marala and come and joined it with Ravi. That means they pulled down the Marala water or the Chenab water and put it in Ravi. From Marala Ravi link canal it's called. And secondly, at a place called Bambanwala, little further west of Marala, they have taken out another canal from Bambanwala to Ravi siphon to Bediya. It's called Bambanwala Ravi Bediya link canal, and this canal flows south of Lahore. Ravi flows north of Lahore, and Bambanwala Ravi Bediya link canal flows south of Lahore. That is how they are able to cultivate the agricultural land in their Punjab province. Now, if we have already stopped the water in Ravi, Satluj and Beas, and now Chenab, Jhelum and Indus water we are controlling, and Marala dries out, it's not only that Sindh province and the Balochistan will dry out, Punjabi Pakistan will dry out, Pakistani Punjab will dry out. Both this.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. 8 days since the Pahalgam attack, and the hunt is very much on for the 4 terrorists who carried out that dastardly attack. India is turning on the screws on Pakistan at every level possible: economic, diplomatic, and of course, military. In one of his first public comments on the Pahalgam attack, the Prime Minister vowed that this shall be avenged. He said both the terrorists